Welcome to the Resiliency of the Human Spirit podcast, where we share all about human triumphs for the collective's healing and empowerment. I am your host, Priscilla Hanley. My guest today is Emma O'Brien. Emma has been an entrepreneur for 20 years. She is a certified HeartMath coach and a Martha Beck Wayfinder trained life coach. She blends intuitive and practical coaching skills with her extensive expertise in helping clients shift their mindsets and change their lives for the better. Emma is a TEDx speaker and an award-winning dog photographer, having run her successful photography studios in both the United Kingdom and South Africa. Without further ado, I'm going to bring Emma on right now. Hi, Emma.
Hi, Priscilla. Lovely to see you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, lovely to see you. I just want to thank you for taking the time to join me and our audience today. And I just want to say, wow, you had a very interesting journey from TEDx speaker to award-winning dog photographer and now a coach helping people to live more empowered lives. And you're in South Africa. I've never spoken to anybody from South Africa. So I'll open the floor to you, and I would love it if you could share your story with our audience on how this whole interesting journey started for you.
Yeah, thanks for giving me the platform. Yeah, I think the one thing that I can say that's punctuated my life and been a constant is change. And I think we often end up helping other people with the things that we have been through ourselves, because when you've been able to successfully navigate change, it's easier to support other people to do the same. And I think change can be scary for the most part. So for me, I think life has been full of changes. So I left school not really knowing what I wanted to do. I just wanted to leave school because I actually absolutely hated school. I think I remember from the moment I was 4 and I first set foot in school, I just thought, I actually hate this, can't wait to leave. So school was a very interesting time. And then I left school and went straight out to work because I was kind of quite determined to be independent. I had my daughter when I was 22, which is far too young to be having children, really, in retrospect. She is now 20, and I look at that and just think,
Oh, wow.
I can't even begin to imagine Rosie with a child. So I had Rosie, I got married, and then I got divorced quite promptly. And then in the aftermath of that, I met somebody else who was also going through a divorce, and we ended up relocating to South Africa. He got a job here, and I ended up here. And so there was a huge shifting continents was quite a massive thing to do, and it was a huge upheaval. And I look back now at all the changes I've been through even since then, and I just think I'm not quite sure how I managed to cope through all of those, because I think the older I've got, the less keen I am to, rock the boat. But I guess it was an adventure. It was something new. It was a bit of an escape, I suppose, from my life in the UK. I'd been running a wedding photography business, and I'd got myself to the point of burnout with that. And I think the shift from the UK to South Africa was an opportunity to start over, really.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So how's life in South Africa? I mean, South Africa, not many people, like relocate to South Africa. How's life for you there?
No, it's quite funny. Everybody at the moment is relocating out of South Africa to everywhere else that they can do. So I think, look, I enjoy it here. I've been here for 14 years. So
Wow.
I don't have the same boyfriend anymore that I moved with. So that's a whole other shift and change that happened. I went from being in a relationship with somebody in a nice big house to jumping ship and renting a tiny cottage and having to kind of start all over again. But I think it got to the point with the South African journey of that could have been a point in 2012, that relationship broke down. That could have been a point of going back to the UK. But I just looked at it and thought, I've been here, I've got a business that I've started was starting to kind of take shape and become established. I'd made friends, and I just thought I can't shift again.
Right.
So I made peace with where I was at, and the lifestyle here is good. The weather is fantastic. The people are great. I know we're the probably what most people hear of South Africa is that it's very crime ridden, which it is. And there's a big poverty gap, which there are those things that happen here. But for me, my life is here now. I've met somebody else. We're getting married shortly, and
Oh,
I think
congrats.
thank you very much. And I think sometimes you kind of, I guess the other theme for me is accepting, being grateful for, and making the best of what's happening in my life, because I think there can be a tendency for people to think the grass is greener and we could go here and start again and it would be different. And I think sometimes it's about staying still and getting to grips with where you're at and what's going on and being okay with that.
Yeah, I so agree with that. And that so resonates with me because, like what you said, being in the present, right? Just accepting what is in the present and making the best of it. Because
Yeah.
the present moment is all that we have, right? Like the past is no longer with us and the future is not even here yet. So really, we're creating our life in the present moment. So
Yeah.
that is so powerful. And you talked about change, and change is can be a scary word to a lot of people. But for my perspective, change is the only constant in life, right? Change
Yeah.
equates to evolution or evolving. So why do you
Mhm.
think, in your opinion, why do you think so many people are afraid of change?
I think because when things change, we don't know what's going to happen. And we are, as humans, creatures of habit, and we like certainty. And I think we crave certainty.
Mhm.
And the prospect of change throws that certainty into complete flux. And we just don't know what's going to happen. And I think it sets off a chain of thoughts of, if this changes, will I cope? What will happen? And this is why I think people are so caught up in future worrying and past ruminating,
Mhm.
because we're trying to control things with our thinking patterns because we don't want things to change. And like you've said, change is the only constant. And as it's coming to terms with accepting that and not being frightened of it. And I think that takes being able to be present and being able to be in your life as it's unfolding, as opposed to constantly striving or constantly worrying. And that's easier said than done.
Yeah, I agree. So what do you wish you would have known before you started your journey as an entrepreneur?
Oh, so many things. I think that it's important to very much value your time. I I think the other thing is you don't have to do everything yourself, and it is unwise to try and do everything yourself.
Mhm.
And yeah, you're just it's a very interesting and quite layered question, that. And I think perhaps you're more skilled than you know.
I like that. I like that. So how did that come about for you? You finding yourself as being more skilled than you expected?
Well, that's been a process over time. And I think I did an exercise when I was working with a business coach a while ago, and she asked me to email all of my clients for feedback,
Oh.
which was which was completely terrifying. And as a creative person who has lived with a very active imposter for, the duration of my photography career, that was quite a challenging one. And it was interesting that my expectation was that people would come back with negative feedback. And actually, they didn't. I got wonderful feedback. So that was a really great reminder of, actually, I'm doing a lot better than I perhaps think I am.
Yeah.
So for anybody listening who runs a business, as a tip, it's a great exercise to do that, to ask for feedback from your clients. The questions I had to ask were, what do I do really well? Why do you enjoy working with me? And if you had any pointers for me to improve, what would they be? And I got such great feedback. I got a few pointers of where to improve that were very kindly delivered. Nobody replied and said, you're completely rubbish, we hate you, which I think was part of me was expecting. And I also got great pointers of where I could improve, but I also got some great little phrases I could use in my marketing material. So it was a really wonderful exercise, and it was a confidence building exercise for me as well. I think often as entrepreneurs, especially if you're a solopreneur, confidence can be a difficult thing because am I doing it right? Is this good? Do people like me? Are people enjoying my work? Because we don't always know. We don't always get that feedback. So
Right.
that was a great exercise to do.
I like that. Thank you for this tip. I think I'm gonna follow that because I'm a solopreneur, and yeah, sometimes it gets overwhelming trying to run the business by myself,
Yeah.
And talking about overwhelm, this is what you do now, right? To help people to overcome overwhelm. So what are the trends that you're seeing right now with the people that you're working with regards to overwhelm and navigating change?
Yeah, I think everybody's plates are very full. And I think if we're looking at small business owners, often solopreneurs especially are trying to do everything themselves in their business. And there becomes not enough time in the day to do your actual work and do the admin and do the marketing and have a life outside of your business, which is super important. It was I had a big wake up call in 2016 when I had a massive episode of burnout. Again, this is what's brought me to this work is I know what it's like to be burnt out and so overwhelmed that you literally kind of collapse in on yourself. And I was kind of running the belief system that if I don't work, I don't get paid. I told myself I can't afford to hire anybody to help me, which at the time I couldn't because my pricing was all over the show. I was too busy working in my business to work on my business.
All right.
And I think overwhelm is a sign that things are very much out of alignment. I think it's a very overpowering and very unpleasant feeling to be overwhelmed. And when we're overwhelmed, we often try to escape from it, which then leads to procrastination. So then the mountain of things we have to do just gets bigger and bigger, and the overwhelm gets worse and worse. Who runs a small business, and she was absolutely shattered because not only was she working in her business, she was then trying to work on her business until 3 o'clock in the morning. It's unplayable. And that is not how a business should be run. But I think sometimes we don't know what we don't know as solopreneurs until you have another set of eyes on it to say, hang on a minute, where could you outsource these tasks? Is what you're doing here actually making you any money? And if it's not, why are you doing it? What could you do instead? And I think sometimes we can't see the wood for the trees. So for me, my own experience of it has given me the expertise to really help guide other people through what's an unpleasant place to be overwhelmed. Is horrid.
Well, what would you say to those people who say that it's all about time management, right? Managing overwhelm is all about time management. What would you say to that?
I think the first thing, if you are feeling overwhelmed and you think you don't have enough time, is to start to have a look at how are you using your time? Because I think, again, I don't have enough time is a belief. It's a thought that you're having. And if you were to do an inventory of where your time is spent, my guess would be that a lot of people are spending time mindlessly scrolling through social media. A lot of people are spending time firefighting emails and fielding inquiries and messages all throughout the day, which if you're trying to do 20 things at once, it's going to take way longer than if you allocated time for emails in the morning. lunchtime at the end of the day. And the same with any messages that come in, and try to be strict with yourself as to how you're spending your time. I think that's the thing, is that the first thing is to do a time inventory and have a look at and be really honest with yourself. Where is my time going? What am I doing? I have had to retrain myself with time. I'm running 2 businesses at the moment, which is very challenging to try and balance the 2 of them. And I was finding that if I had to go out to do a photo shoot in the afternoon, for instance, I would struggle to really concentrate for most of the morning to get anything done. And I've had to get disciplined with myself and say, I've got half an hour here. How could I use that, as opposed to fiddling around and thinking, oh, I've got half an hour, there's no point doing anything. It's a mindset shift when it comes to time.
I agree. And what advice would you give to someone who's struggling with overwhelm right now?
I think, like I've said, is to acknowledge that you're overwhelmed. Sometimes we don't want to actually acknowledge how we're feeling. It's okay to say, I'm not coping very well at the moment. And then the next piece of advice I would give would be to say, what is the predominant thing that's causing the overwhelm? Is it that you don't think you've got enough time to get things done? Is it that you need some help and you're actually not asking for it? Or you're telling yourself you can't pay for that help? As business owners, we should be working on the areas of expertise in our businesses, not working on admin if that's something you could pay somebody else to do. You have to have a look at, is it worth my time to be doing teeny tiny admin tasks that could be outsourced to a virtual assistant who will be an expert. I've got a wonderful virtual assistant who does all of my newsletter marketing and my lead pages and my sales pages for me. I will write the copy and I will tell her what I want, and I just send it off to her for her to do. I have no idea how to work the back end of MailChimp. I don't need to know when I can pay somebody else to do it, because it would be hours of my time trying to figure it out. And that is not a good use of my time. So it's that time inventory, and it's having a look at what things could somebody else do for me to free up my time.
Yeah, I think as you were talking, this came into my mind. I think sometimes overwhelm is also linked to control.
Yes.
It's like, I gotta do everything myself because I don't want to outsource it to people because they're gonna mess it up. So I want to control everything. Do you see that a lot in your work?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think sometimes people get a bit caught up with, I'm going to have to invest a bit of time training somebody or showing somebody how to do it. And I don't have the time to do that. And whatever you're doing, if you're hiring somebody to do something for you, there's going to be a period of time where you've got to check up on what's happening. And I think even if you've got someone who's been working with you for a while, you still need to be overseeing what's going on. So if I come back to the example of my VA with my newsletters, I will send her the copy. She'll put it all together. She will send a test to me that I will approve before it goes out. I don't give carte blanche to somebody to do things, but the important piece here is I'm not the one sitting in the back end creating that newsletter and trying to worry about how it's laid out and worrying about which list it's going to and who's tagged and what's happening with it. So that is, again, it's a mindset shift. If you want to move forward in your business, you cannot do that whilst doing all of the things. You have to have a look at, what can I outsource to free up time so I can get more clients in and generate more money in my zone of genius in my business.
Right. Got it. I know you mentioned about imposter syndrome earlier, and I want to touch on it right now. So what do you think is the root cause of imposter syndrome? I mean, we all suffer from it, right? At some point in our lives. So why do you think we go through imposter syndrome tendencies?
Yeah, now imposter syndrome is quite a fascinating one. So it does tend to affect very high achieving people, which I think is always very interesting. And it tends to affect people who are perfectionists and who are striving to be really, really good. But there's always that thought of, is my best good enough? And it is a challenging thing to overcome. I think sometimes it's about becoming aware of my imposter showing up a little bit now, but I'm going to continue to take action anyway. I think especially as a creative person, I can very much relate to it, because I think you're judged in my photography, you're judged on the visuals of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of putting out. It's interesting for me with the coaching business, the imposter doesn't show up for me so much with the coaching, because the coaching is, I do one-on-one coaching with clients. You're getting immediate feedback from people, and you can see if someone's had a shift, you can see what's going on. Whereas I think when we're doing work and we're not getting immediate feedback, or we're not quite sure what's going on, that's when it tends to show up. And it is something that does need to be managed. It is something you need to acknowledge, because if you allow it to take charge, it will stop you from taking action. I think that's when an imposter syndrome becomes a problem, when you're just paralyzed with, I can't do anything because I don't know if I'm going to do it right, or if I don't know if I'm going to do it well, or what if somebody judges me? And it's acknowledging that and saying, okay, but I've got to do the thing, and I'm going to continue with it regardless. The one plus side, I think, with imposter syndrome is that it will keep driving you forwards to do well. I think that is, because it's something I've spent time looking at my own imposter, because I realized that for 2 decades I've been sitting with an imposter especially with my photography business. And actually, it has been quite annoying, because I've had to manage the self-talk that comes with that. I think the imposter can come with some very negative self-talk. So I've done quite a lot of work on my own self-talk, but it has driven me to keep making new work and keep being better. It's balancing it.
Right. I'm interested about your negative self-talk. What techniques did you use on yourself to navigate or heal yourself from negative self-talk?
Yeah, I think it's about becoming aware of the inner dialogue that's going on, and listening to it, and becoming aware of it, and almost stepping back and being the observer of it. And the question to ask is, would I talk to somebody else the way I'm talking to myself? And the chances are you wouldn't. Mine used to be things like, oh, you're such an idiot, you're so stupid. I mean, all of those things. I mean, imagine you would never say that to another person. Well, I hope you wouldn't. I don't think anybody would say that to somebody else. But yet we say it to ourselves, and our own inner voice is the one we hear the most. And we're also in control of that, of being able to say, hang on a minute, that I'm being very hard on myself here. And it was, for me, it was a process of kind of really toning it down. It's still a process. You're in the personal development field. It's always going to be a process. We're always on a transformational journey of our own self-growth. But I think it's just that awareness is the first thing to go, hang on a minute, goodness, I'm being really nasty to myself here. What would be a better way of talking to myself here?
I like that. And sometimes negative self-talk comes from childhood, right? Because we
Yes.
were maybe programmed by parents who had very high expectations. And when we didn't meet those expectations, we were chastised. And so that's like we absorbing all this energy, and we just kind of repeat it in our lives. So I like the fact that you bring up about being self-aware about how you're talking to yourself, because I think a lot of people are kind of lacking in the self-love department.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much.
So I need to ask you this because I'm a huge dog lover. We're both dog lovers. So how did you get into this dog photography business?
Oh, that was a total and utter accident. I touched on when I was sharing my story. I started life as a wedding photographer, because literally at age 22, 23, when I suddenly woke up one day and went, I'm going to be a photographer. I went and did a college course, and I literally fell into wedding photography because it was just, how do I how do I earn money doing photography?
Mm-hmm.
So I fell into wedding photography, and that's kind of where I ended up. I got divorced and started to hate wedding photography, and then moved to South Africa and promised myself I'd retire from wedding photography, which I did. So I shifted to portrait photography and family photography. And then at the time, I shared as well, the guy I moved here with had a great job here. We weren't reliant on me earning any money at that time. So I had a bit of free time. And we had gone to our local SPCA to go and adopt a dog. And whilst I was there, I just happened to get talking to somebody and said, I'm a photographer. Is there some way I can help you with your fundraising? So bear in mind, I don't think I'd photographed many animals before this. And they went, cool, let's do a calendar. So this was back in 2011. And I can remember at the time uttering the words, I'm not a dog photographer, famous last words. And I shot this calendar. And then from the calendar, other people started asking me to photograph their animals. And then I started doing other work for some of the other animal shelters here, volunteering my time to take pictures of dogs that needed homes. And as they say, the rest is history. And, 12 years later, it's what I specialize in doing. So it was a very happy accident. And then, of course, in going to all these shelters, I collected up loads of dogs. So
Yeah, I think you told me at one time you had 7 dogs, right?
7 dogs. Yes, we now have 4 dogs, which is a little bit more manageable.
And let's talk a little bit about your TEDx talk. I
Yeah,
watched it. That was phenomenal. And you
thank
did
you.
the Black Dog series. I like
Yeah,
those pictures. It's so beautiful.
thanks. Yeah, so again, that was a project, and it's interesting. We talked about imposter syndrome, and the TEDx talk. I talk about my imposter in the TEDx talk, and I came up with the idea of photographing black rescue dogs against a black background in the studio. It's something that had happened with a paying client with a non-rescue dog, and I set it up and thought, oh, this looks quite nice. And I was looking for a creative side project to have on the go, and I thought, oh, and I'm always looking to help promote adoption of shelter dogs. It's something I'm very passionate about. So I came up with the idea of photographing these black dogs against a black background. Black shelter dogs, unfortunately, are the least likely to be adopted, the most likely to be put to sleep. So I thought, let me use my skills to shed a bit of light on this. And I put the project together, and I was looking at how I was going to kind of make it a cohesive body of work. And I'd done a book that I self-published a book, I think 2 or 3 years before that. And I thought, I don't want to do a generic, here's Bob, he was from a shelter, it was very sad, now it's fine. Because I just thought, no, we've all heard it before. So I was looking for, how do I put a really interesting spin on this? And the idea popped into my head of captioning the pictures like the dogs were describing themselves for a Tinder profile.
No, that's so cool.
So that's what I did. And I put it out onto Board Panda. But I almost didn't put it out because I sat with it and thought, I want to be taken seriously as an artist. And here's where the imposter popped in. I want to be taken seriously as an artist. These captions and this concept is a little silly. Maybe it's a little childish. Maybe people will think I'm an idiot. And then I just thought, you know what? This is me showing up as my very authentic self. I have got a bit of a strange sense of humor. I am a bit sarcastic. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to put it out there and whatever. And apparently being authentic and putting it out there is the way to do it, because this project went viral globally. And
Wonderful.
And it was from off the back of that I pitched to do a TEDx talk. And that was the most terrifying 10 minutes of my life. Let's just put it that way, standing on that TEDx stage.
You look good. You look like you were a
Thanks.
professional. I bet a lot of practice went into that talk. Yeah,
Yes.
I bet so.
Yeah. I think the biggest fear with that was, what if I freeze and completely forget what I'm going to say? I think that was the biggest fear for me. I didn't. But like you said, I practiced and I prepped and I practiced again, and until I had it really off by heart. There's a teleprompter at the
Oh,
bottom.
okay.
So
Okay.
if you do have a moment if anyone's thinking of doing a TEDx talk, they do give a prompter. The trouble is looking at the prompter and then trying to concentrate
Mm,
is you don't really want to be looking at it. But I'd anyway, I pulled it off somehow. So
beautifully.
thank you very much.
And I like it because it brought awareness to, the black dog situation in shelters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
my person because like I said, we're huge dog lovers.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I want to just shift to resources right now. So
Hmm.
like I said, you had a very interesting journey. If you could share a couple resources that helped you in your healing and or life journey with our audience, that would be great.
I think the one big thing that was a massive help for me was hiring a business coach. Back in 2016, when I hit burnout, I'd got to the point of being so overwhelmed with my business that I knew I needed to change something because I couldn't continue as I was. I was literally working 7 days a week, all of the hours I could find.
Mhm.
I wasn't earning enough money and I was really, really struggling. And I think this is the thing with overwhelm is often we're in it, we know we're in it, but we don't know what to do differently because we don't know what we don't know. So I hired a business coach, lady by the name of Polly Alexander, and it was life-changing for me. It's why I've ended up being a coach, because I know the power it has to change people's lives. Just having that guidance from somebody else who's got an outside perspective who can say, hang on a minute, could we shift a mindset here? Could we
Mm,
make a change here? Can I offer you a strategy that might be able to really change your life and the way you're doing business? So being coached was a huge thing for me. I've also in the last 18 months been using plant medicine as a healing modality in a ceremonial setting. That has been massive. It's massive for my personal growth. The plant medicine has been a huge thing. I know it's not for everybody, and it's, so I don't want to be here kind of pushing something, but psychedelics are a big thing in the personal development world now for good reason. It has been game changing for me. So those are the two things that really stick out for me.
so when you say plant medicine, do you mean like ayahuasca or
So
something
I
else?
so I have done San Pedro, which is mescaline, and then I've done psilocybin, which is what would be known as magic mushrooms. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, and ayahuasca, they're in the psychedelic family. They all have slightly different effects. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's doing what you feel called to do when you feel called to do it, and with the right intention. I think this is the plant medicine is about the intentionality that you
Mm-hmm.
go into it with, and massively powerful for me.
So that's for spiritual awakening? Is that what you're
Yes,
referring to? Okay.
spiritual awakening. I think finding some self-acceptance that's been a big thing that's happened for me with the plant medicine. Being at peace with myself, being a bit more at peace with interacting with other people. I think it's shifted me into a more compassionate space, which has been very transformative. I'm a HeartMath coach as well, so that's a
Right.
resource that's very powerful. That's a really powerful emotional regulation tool. Being able to manage what's happening internally has a big
Okay.
effect on what happens externally in your life.
Mm, true. Let's shift to your business right now. So I'm curious, do you offer this plant medicine to clients? Like, do you have like a healing circle or anything like that?
No, so I don't offer plant medicine as a modality to people. It's
Okay.
just been something I have used. It's on my radar. I would love to do a psychedelic integration coaching course. So one day I would love to be able to share it. I think the thing with plant medicine is the there's a lot of legalities and
Mm,
things, responsibilities around it. So no, that's not something I offer in terms of coaching. Obviously, if somebody is looking for psychedelic integration coaching, well equipped to help with that. Just can't help with the actual psychedelics.
Okay.
And then I offer HeartMath coaching for people. So that's particularly good for people who are very stressed. It's very good for things like stress and overwhelm and burnout, to be able to just bring you back almost home to yourself and to help you cope a little bit better
Okay.
with the world, which can be a tough place to be sometimes.
Oh, yes. Especially now.
Especially now.
Yeah. I'm interested about this psychedelic integration coaching. Can you speak
Mm-hmm.
more to that? Can you just explain a little bit more?
Yeah, so if somebody has been on a psychedelic journey, for example, there's a lot of stuff that comes up with plant medicine. It will bring a lot of things up. You can go into it with an intention to learn something about yourself, to change something, and you don't always get exactly what you think you're going to get with it. And it can bring a lot of stuff up. It can be something that instigates people wanting to change things, because suddenly you'll go, oh my goodness, all these things I've been worrying about are totally unnecessary, and I'm going to go and do something different. So that's obviously something I could help with. I think it's because psychedelics cause a big internal shift. So it's coaching to help navigate that shift.
Yeah, we're back to navigating change again, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're so kind to offer a special gift for our audience. Would you like to talk more about that, about your 7-step formula for getting unstuck?
Yeah, so that is a free masterclass that you'll find on the website. I'm sure you'll post the link in the show notes to that.
I will.
And that is a workshop where I share my strategy for helping people really get to grips with what's happening, understand why they're stuck, and to start to be able to create a plan to get out of being stuck. I've touched on, often we end up stuck in a place of overwhelm, procrastination, or just spinning wheels because we don't know what to do next. Or we might not even know what we want to do next. I think sometimes that's where people get stuck, is you want something different, but if you don't know what it is, it's impossible to go there.
Right.
So that's a really info-packed, strategy-packed workshop, which people can sign up for, and it get instant access to watch it, and it'll give you some really actionable steps to start you moving forwards again if you're a bit rooted to the spot right now.
Wonderful. Thank you for this special gift. And where can people find you, Emma? Online?
You can find me on my website, which is emmaobriencoach.com. I'm also active on Instagram, which is @EmmaO'BrienCoach. Also on TikTok, which you'll get a slightly different flavor of me on TikTok. I've embraced the fact that TikTok is like the Wild West of social media.
Oh, really?
So you can also find me @EmmaO'BrienCoach on TikTok as well.
And go ahead, talk about your podcast. You have a podcast.
Yes, I do have. Thank you for reminding me about that, Priscilla. I do. I have a podcast called the Lemons and Pineapples Podcast, and that is a space where I share my own personal development tips and strategies. I have loads of great guest interviews, and effectively, I tend to interview people about things that interest me. So there are podcasts on there about sleeping better, gut health, plant medicine. We've got one about energetic alignment. There's all sorts on there. So you can go check out Lemons and Pineapples it's on all the usual podcast platforms.
And are you looking for guests?
Yes. So I'm looking for guests as well.
Wonderful.
So Priscilla, maybe we should have you on the podcast as well.
Yeah, maybe we need to talk about that.
We can.
Well, okay, so we have a couple minutes left. So I have a signature closing question for all my guests. And are you ready? I'm going to ask you it now.
Go for it.
Okay. What is your closing message for humanity to help in our collective healing and empowerment?
I think it is that it is important for you to find your happy and live from a place of joy. When we are in our own space of happy and when we are coming from a place of authentic joy, not only do we positively impact the people around us, we also invite other people to take a step into their happiness and into living from a space of joy. We need more positive intent and positive energy and kindness on our planet right now.
Yes, I
So
agree.
there's my closing piece of advice there.
Thank you. I so resonate with that. It all starts from within us, right? If we
It
are
starts
at
with us.
peace and if we're happy inside, we're going to radiate it all out. And then the collective benefits from that.
Absolutely. Fully agree.
Thank you, Emma, so much for being here today. I so enjoyed our conversation. And thank you for the profound work you're doing with dogs and with people.
Thank you very much for having me. I've loved chatting to you, and I'm really grateful for you allowing me to guest on your podcast.
Thank you. And for everybody who's watching and listening, thank you for your time. And until next time, bye for now.